Hello Internet, my name is the Golden Snuffos and today I'm going to be talking about Metroid Prime 2. Now, fans of the channel may know I made a Halloween themed episode about why that game is so scary, but since I'm doing a whole retrospective series on the series, I figure I should take at least a few minutes to talk about the game in this series. So, if you want to know why the game is so scary, you can go back to that. But today I'll just talk about the mechanics and how it innovates on the series and that kind of shit, that kind of thing. All right. So one thing that's important to remember about Prime 2 is that it has the almost impossible task of following up from Prime 1, which was incredible. um, I spent most of my video on Prime 1 complaining about the very small faults that it has, just to, point them out. But while it's not perfect, it is an unbelievably great experience and probably the best that the Metroid series has gotten for a while. um, well, depends on how you look at it. But certainly when it came out, it was the best the series had ever reached. So there's that. And so in some ways, Metroid 2 is a huge improvement. There's a lot more collectible hunting. There's a lot more back and forth. There's a lot more exploration. 100%ing the game is way harder. But, and it includes some power-ups that weren't in the original, some new mechanics. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it. But it's also got a lot of problems. I mean, for one thing, Metroid Prime had a much bigger diversity of areas and enemies that go in those areas. And Prime 2 is mostly just here's these 4 different versions of the same fucking desert. I guess we'll put a techno tower in one of them. And oh, you can also go through the Dark World version of this same fucking desert. That's, you know. Um, there's 3 areas, right? So there's the desert area, the swamp area, and the technology area, I guess. It's just this sky rise that has a bunch of, you know, enemy robots and uh, you know, spider ball rails and stuff like that. Um, and those 3 areas are technically distinct from each other, but it's worth noting that you spend the vast majority of your gameplay time in the desert area, and the central hub location is most similar to the desert area. So it just feels like you're in the desert area most of the time. Um, and also, it's only 3 unique areas as opposed to the 5, 6 that you got in Prime 1. In Prime 1, you had an ice world, a fire world, a jungle area, which also had a water level, right? And then you had the phase on mines, and you still had, room for that technological stuff in, scattered throughout. Um, yeah, and then you had your final battle area, which is this big crater thing. Um, and so, compared to that, it feels like there's way less variety. The vast majority of the game, you're in very samey looking areas, and everything is kind of dark, even when you're in the light world. There's no bright, vibrant environments like you got on Talon 4. There's just nothing like that. And that sucks, but I guess they felt it would be incongruous with the tone if you had a bunch of bright, happy areas. I mean, not even happy, just, colorful. just visually fun to look at, um, or at least visually distinct to look at. Because I mean, in Prime One, you're constantly feeling like you're trapped in this fucked up monster world and you can't go anywhere and you need to just fucking power through it. But you know, you get to move between different areas of the fucked up monster world, and those different areas look nice. But in Prime 2, you don't really get that as much, and it feels. Ugh. It just makes you feel like you're going in circles because everything is just dry, sandy rock walls with gray corridors inside of them, and then just. Ugh. It has that like it has that problem that a bunch of like Call of Duty type games have where everything is just fucking brown, which goes back to Quake, but it's a lot like Quake in that way where everything is like brown or gray brown, and you get tired of fucking looking at it. You want some color, you want some variation, and you don't really get that. I mean, I guess it makes the blaster shots stand out a bit more because those are very colorful and bright. But, and that's honestly my biggest complaint with Prime 2 is just that there's a lower variety of areas and a lower visual variety amongst those areas, even than you would expect. Like there are 3 distinct areas, but they don't feel that distinct because the visual variety is so low. Um, yeah. But like I said, the game does make a much better use of the back and forth exploratory nature of Metroid maps. And there's no areas like Magmore Caverns that are just hallways. So on a mechanical level, it's an improvement. Um, but on a visual level, it's a downgrade. Well, kind of. I mean, as far as visual fidelity goes, it might even be better than the original. It runs on the same engine, but it's clear they had time to tweak it and make it just shine a little bit better. Although it's also clear that Prime 2 was in production even before Prime 1 had finished being released. Because the first time I played Prime 2 was on a demo disc that I got with my first copy of Prime 1. Um, you know, and so clearly they were being developed more or less alongside each other. Uh, it's possible even that they were building, Prime 1 and they had this plan for these other areas and scrapped it and decided to make it its own thing. And that's why it doesn't have as much, like, space in it. Um, well, actually, that's not true. I think it has as many rooms in it. It's just that the rooms are subdivided into fewer categories, so they are more similar. But it's clear at the very least that they were planning to make this game before they even finished the first one, which is kind of ballsy considering how long Metroid had gone without getting a sequel. But, I mean, it worked. And, Prime 2 is an excellent game in terms of horror and atmosphere and collectibles. And, like I said, it does improve and add in some mechanics that weren't there before. You get the screw attack, which is cool. It still works a little differently than it did in the 2D games, but that's fine, honestly. Like, you know, it couldn't work the same way it did in the 2D games. Um, they do not port over the Spark Dash. As far as I know, well, I know exactly. That's never happened, and it probably never will because that just doesn't work in 3D. But, and it also added some more unique mechanics that brought it in line with more modern shooters. For example, there's ammo limits on your light and dark ammo. Now, supposedly, when you kill something with light ammo, it's more likely to drop dark ammo, and vice versa. So you're supposed to, save up your shots, use them for the finishing blow on strong enemies, and, that way you can keep your energy levels high for both ammunitions when you need them. But it doesn't guarantee a drop. It just increases the odds, supposedly. And I, for one, never really found that to be a reliable way to keep my uh, stores high. So I just never use light or dark ammo unless I absolutely have to for a specific door or because the enemy is completely immune to anything but, you know? Um, which makes it feel which makes the gameplay feel a lot more monotonous because you can't switch between your weapons at will. So, you're just using the power beam all the time instead of sometimes you shoot in lava, sometimes you shoot in lightning. Personally, I think the balancing act in Prime 1 was fine. You didn't need to limit ammo, you just needed to make it so that some ammo is more effective against some enemies. And, that each one has a unique thing, and so that you feel inclined to do this thing or that thing, depending on what your personality is or what the challenge in front of you is. You know, you're not going to walk into Financial Drifts and start using the ice beam to take down the fucking ice monsters because that'd be silly. You'll use the plasma beam if you have it, you know? Um, but yeah, overall combat feels very repetitive because of that. There's less enemy variety than before, and there's more just spamming the power beam than before. Um, but you also get some new suits. Um, Obviously, there's a standard various suit, gravity suit, etc. But you also get a dark suit and a light suit, which, you know, change the way that you interact with the dark world. And the light suit even lets you warp around the map, which is cool. I mean, the areas you can warp to are pretty limited, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's something. Um, and in order to get to the final boss, you no longer have to collect 13 relics. You instead need 12 Dark Temple keys. Uh, Now, in fairness, these temple keys are easier to get, and you can collect them throughout the game rather than just doing it all at once at the end. But still, it's a weird, silly thing to have to do. Um, and I'm glad they finally decided to get rid of that mechanic when they moved on to Prime 3. Um, I mean, like, having in-game collectibles is great. And having, like, some really cool stuff that you unlock at the end is fine. And honestly, if instead of getting 13 keys, you got 13, pieces of a really cool power up, an optional power up that you don't need to fight the boss, but it makes the boss really easy or something, that'd be cool. I'd be into that. Because then you could do, challenge runs where you don't get it, and you could, go out of your way to 100% and be like really OP and have fun. I mean, it provides gameplay options and a reward for your searching instead of just being, a roadblock. Because everyone likes rewards and flexibility, and everyone hates roadblocks. Um, so if you wanted to keep a key hunt like that in the game, I would say take out the keys and put in, an optional upgrade. Like a new suit, right? Like you collect the individual pieces of the suit. Here's a foot, here's a leg, here's an arm, you know, um, and you put them all together, and then you get this new suit upgrade that makes you like super powerful or something. That'd be way better, but that's not what they did. Who knows? Maybe they'll do something like that in Prime 4. I mean, I'm sure that it's early enough in development for them to make that decision, because we have no idea where the development process is, even though this game was announced 3 fucking years ago. I mean, I'm not expecting Metroid Prime to be done in a year, Like, I get it, it's a big game, and it should be, but. Uh, like they announced it for the very first time way back in 2017, and like, yeah, after a year they had to switch teams, but that still means that Retro has been on the game for like a year and a half at this point, and no news. The only thing we ever hear about it is, oh, they hired some, producer or whatever, and I'm like, they didn't already have that? What do you mean they hired a lead game design? What? You've been working on this for a year and a half. How do you not have lead game designer? What are you on? I'll do it. Fuck. Let's get this bread, son. No, legit. I saw an ad where you could like apply to join one of the positions there, and like all the positions they were hiring for were like, executive members of the team, like team leads and people who should be like in charge and stuff. And I'm like, how do you not hire those people first? How do you have any sort of team without that team lead? What are you doing? I don't know. Maybe that's standard practice or something, and I'm just stupid. But this is the first time I've ever seen something like that happen. Um, Maybe it's because Retro is actually in America and could potentially hire, me. I mean, not me, but people. You know, I probably don't normally see listings for jobs at Nintendo because most of Nintendo's jobs are in Japan, is what I'm just trying to say. But even still, like, it just seems so weird, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm hoping they get some fucking work done on that and can tell us anything, And I do realize that workflows have changed a lot since the pandemic, and you know, some studios have definitely slowed down a bunch, but like realistically, game design is one of those things that like you don't need to be in an office to do that. You just need to have a computer, and if everyone is, you know, having to scatter to their homes because of the pandemic, then just let them take their work computers with them, and then boom, your workflow doesn't have to change at all. I I mean, you know, I get that you lose some of those team environment things, the meetings and stuff, but like they got Zoom, or if you're not comfortable with the new hot new thing, then there's Skype and Discord, and it's 24 different ways you can communicate with each other. Fucking everyone hop on the telephone for a group call, like it's 1980 or something, you know. But I honestly just don't see why video game development would be slowed by social distancing, because it's all done on the computer anyway, and file sharing and stuff is already a thing. I mean, it does make it harder. Like you definitely have to stop for a minute so you can update your servers and have like, a secure VPN thing, so that when people share stuff over the network, it isn't going to everyone. Um, and you would have to share a lot over the network for game development, but I mean, how long would that really take? Like a month? You know? Eh. I just feel like it's crazy that we haven't gotten any information beyond what team is doing the game now. And I fully expect that they'll do great with it. It just, I wish I knew when they'll do great with it. You know, I don't own a Switch, and I don't want to support Nintendo because they're a shitty, horrible company. But Metroid Prime is such a good fucking game that I will buy a Switch just so I can play it. You know? I mean, I bought a 3DS just so I could play Samus Returns, and I don't even like Samus Returns. You know? And that game is just the definition of anti-consumer bullshit because they only made it so they could say fuck you to a fan project. And I still was willing to fork over $240 to play that game. I didn't buy a new 3DS. I bought a new Nintendo 2DS XL. Whatever fuck word salad they're gonna come up with next. But you know, it cost $200. That was a lot. I was still cheaper than any of the 3DSs they had, which is insane. But anyway, my point, my overall point is just that I'm hyped for the new game and I want more news about it because every game in the Prime series so far has been great. Prime 2 was a huge mechanical improvement over Prime 1, even if it wasn't quite as full of variety as I would have wanted. And Prime 3, well, I'll talk about that in a couple of days, but it's an even bigger step forward in a lot of ways. And in a lot of other ways, another big step back, which is, you know, frustrating. But I attribute that mostly to the limitations of the Wii that luckily the Switch doesn't have, so hopefully Prime 4 will be unambiguously a big leap forward. No backstepping involved. Maybe, if we're lucky. I hope. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next life. Leave your comments down below and tell me how you feel about Prime 2 and whether or not you think it stacks up. And laters. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you have any things to say about it, leave those in the comments section. If you like the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, share the video, tell your friends, start a cult, sacrifice your firstborn and paint their skull golden. I don't know, I mean, not that last bit. No human sacrifices. I'm legally liable. No. None of that shit. But, you know, I got Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I stream on Mondays. I also have a Patreon, but the obvious caveat with Patreon is you never donate to anyone unless you have money to burn. And if you have money to burn, then why not donate to a charity instead? I've got a few linked in my description at all times. I'm not affiliated with any of them, obviously, but yeah, I just thought they were cool, so, you know. Thanks for watching.